and welcome to, this is a bit of a strange setup for us. If you've watched our previous podcasts, then you've probably either seen us outside or seen us somewhere indoors. And as you well know, that our podcast is evolving over time, and it's turning this week into us being sat here with Rich Stockdale from Oxygen and Conservation. We're also here, if the camera turned, with the rest of the Oxygen and Conservation team. We're at one of their estates in North Devon, near Exmoor. And what I'm going to do is just get you to say hello to everybody and introduce yourself. And then we will talk a little bit about who you are, where Oxygen Conservation came from, and hopefully get a little bit more insight into kind of where the project's going as well. So one of the things we like to ask the people that we're interviewing to kind of get to know them, to understand who they are in a question, is if I asked you to give me a day in your life that you would relive, every day, what day would that be? And it reveals a lot, and it's one of those questions that kind of breaks the walls. And it's like, what's the one day? Wedding day. Why are you wedding day?
I still can't believe she agreed to marry me.
Yeah.
So meeting and marrying my wife, single best thing ever happened to me, because everything flew from there. And I always say Helen made me a better human being, because I was pretty much an asshole. And she taught me how to be a nicer person and improve on everything. And I just remember that day being absolutely sort of perfectly us. So vintage afternoon tea in the town where I was born. I'm not a religious guy, but married in the church where her school was connected to. And just that day where everyone's there to celebrate that fact. That day, I think. No one's ever asked me that before. So
yeah, it's a good one, because it's kind of like, it's not, some people might go, the day my children were born, but for me, it's horrific. So I don't want to relive that every single day of my life. But actually for me, it probably would be my wedding day too. And for similar reasons, the idea of everyone being in one place to celebrate you and that moment, the moment that you met your wife that changed everything, but then to be there to celebrate it because they weren't there that day you met is a really amazing thing. So that's great. Now, obviously for the people that are watching this, they don't know who you are. They don't know who Oxygen and Conservation are potentially, so we'll get into that later. But who is Rich Stockdale? I mean, in terms of, it's gone forever. You could go through your whole life story. But if you could, kind of summarize who you are in a couple of minutes to take you from how you grew up and how that ultimately is translated into who you are today and where Oxygen and Conservation came from.
Yeah. So when I'm asked about that today, I say founder and managing director of Oxygen and Conservation, because I'm super proud of the team and what we did. If I think about the different chapters of life, because I think we talked about reinvention every time, being a different person. So I'm someone that is always frustrated and annoyed and wanting to find a better way of doing things. Big chapters of my life surrounded trying to achieve that next thing, be it sport, be it university, be it business, and progressing that forward. And kind of live by the motto, how you do anything is how you do everything. Try and do it properly, try and drive forward, try and achieve things. I would say characteristics of who I am are, I want to outwork everyone in the room. Yeah. Which is an awesome conversation to have with you. Same principle, I know. I don't think anything's impossible. I think people are incredible. And my wife did her dissertation at uni on breaking the Enigma code at Bletchley Park. Yeah. And massive data geek, love that. And the fact that that was even possible shows that whatever we think the challenge is, climate change, biodiversity loss, if we sort ourselves out, we can absolutely achieve that.
Everything's possible.
Everything. So
your Helen is maths background, same as Kate, which is a weird coincidence.
Yeah. And the fact we're both massive data geeks.
Yeah. Most people don't know this, and definitely won't know this, but you're obviously big American football. Yeah. That's what your sport of choice. Yeah. That's what it was at uni.
After I failed to make the Great Britain kayaking team, so
kayaking, right? Kayaking, American
lots of failures, and passion for the environment was throwing myself off waterfalls as a kid.
Yeah.
Tried to get in the Great Britain kayaking squad, wasn't good enough, not a good enough athlete, failed, went to uni, threw a strop and went, right, I'm going to play the most ridiculous sport I can find. And I had a mate playing American football, and there were some attractive blonde women over there, so I decided I was going to go play American football.
Fair. But took you around the world a little bit?
Took around the world a little bit. Los Angeles, came back with one knee, and that's been a defining feature as well, bigger boys. There's an amazing picture I've got to show you, I've still got at home somewhere. I don't keep stuff in life like memorabilia or chapters of stuff. So Dan, who's with us, our head of environment, has got the most amazing retro collection of toys and experiences. I kept nothing, so moved so much. But I've got this one picture that I found sort of years later, me and the two other captains for Great Britain were playing out in Los Angeles. and I look like the mascot. My foot's shorter than everyone else. It looks like someone's little brothers come along to play. So yeah, trips with that. Again, that linked back to the just work really hard to achieve what you possibly could, and I ended up doing a PhD to keep playing American football, and then totally reluctant academic. Remember that moment of waking up in the middle of the night, halfway through the PhD, and being like, shit, I've got to write a book now, and I've done nothing. Cold sweat, hit a list, right, what do I need to do? And 388 pages later, not that that's engraved in my mind. The PhD came out then.
So, we know that, that backstory that you have has, and just in brief, you were at the Environment Agency.
Yeah.
You were
don't hold it against me.
You were the bright star at the Environment Agency. You flew through, but you ultimately got to a point where you went, I need to do more, right?
Yeah.
There was more for you to do. There was something calling you.
I should say it was a very mutual divorce. So I was sick of them not letting me try and save the environment and change the world, and they were sick of me asking them to.
Yeah.
So it was a mutual divorce. They wanted rid of me as much as I wanted to go. So left 2018, actually just as our second child George was born. My wife was miserable. We were living away from family and friends, and I just had enough of trying everything. And I was like, I'm not doing. There's an amazing Yes Minister episode where they interview this lady for a promotion. They're trying to rebalance the gender balance, and they say, "Oh, well, but we've worked really hard for a promotion for you, don't you think?" And she goes, "Well, I'm leaving." And, well, don't you think running the country is important? Yes, I've just not seen anyone do it, and that's what I felt about the Environment Agency, that they weren't doing anything to help the environment. So I wanted to leave and do that.
So the brick walls that you were hitting at Environment Agency, really were they one of the big kind of inspiring or motivating factors for oxygen conservation? And
yeah, that frustration, that the amount of money that was just doing nothing, just being cycled around, moved around on a spreadsheet and not achieving anything, a massive part of it.
Yeah.
But when I left the EA, I had no comprehension about business work. So I'd gone all throughout university. So first person to finish school, never mind go to uni. Went to uni, stayed there a decade, degree into PhD. My poor parents were like, "Are you sure you're not failing?"
Yeah.
Like, no, it's fine, it'll be all right. Played a load more football, spent a lot of time in the gym. So left, and all throughout uni I was working manual labour jobs to pay to go through uni. Came out the week after the financial crisis, 2008, and nowhere was recruiting except the public sector. So went and worked there for 9 years, lots of different jobs, travelled across the country doing that. But commercial side of a business wasn't real. Money wasn't real. You couldn't spend it on anything. It was a token.
It was a monopoly money.
Yeah, you could move it around the business, but it was a token.
Yeah.
I never sold anything in my life other than beer from behind a bar when I was a teenager. So went to work for an amazing engineering firm called Sanctus, who, based in Gloucestershire, deal with the nastiest of the nasty, full stop, in terms of remediation, asbestos, nuclear waste, oil refineries, things like that. And they started a sister company that they wanted me to run, which was the environmental side of what we're doing. We just had a light issue, people. Is this going to keep going?
Yeah, this keeps going. If the light has just gone off, it will probably come back on if somebody moves over this way. So let's not worry about it. Let's just keep going. We've got fire.
Nice.
We're good. We're absolutely good.
So
you're at Sanctus.
Most amazing experience with Sanctus.
Yeah.
So I went to see them after a recommendation from a friend of a friend who was a recruiter and said they'd love a chat. I went for a chat, and they were the most incredible, engaging, inspirational people that were like, "We want you," and pitched me. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so different from public sector bureaucracy." And that was the start of everything. And Sanctus was kind of my professional liberation.
Yeah.
They taught me how to be commercial and
give you those extra little bits that you needed to.
Sean Tolfrey, who's MD there, taught me everything. I'm incredibly grateful to him, and that gave me the other bit that I didn't have. And actually, when you come out of the public sector, your CV is pretty toxic.
Yeah.
And in fact, academia is the same thing. So anyone who would look at my CV, you would see PhD, data geek, public sector. You don't expect me.
Yeah.
You don't expect meathead powerlifter with tattoos who can talk. You expect the exact opposite. I remember asking Pete when they were offering me a job at Sanctus, "Is there anything that makes you nervous about my CV?" Like, "Oh no, we just saw the PhD and thought not for us, but meeting you, so it's kind of that's the other thing I'd say about me. Massive contradiction.
So frustrations in the EA in terms, hitting those walls and not really seeing the kind of,
and so much bureaucracy.
Yeah, so much bureaucracy, not being able to actually see results and see genuine change. You are then kind of properly tooled up by the right people at Sanctus. They gave you the opportunity. They gave you the kind of, there's more that can be done here.
Yeah.
So those things combined then led you into this.
A friendship with one of the directors at Oxygen House, or Glenn Woodcock, who is legitimate genius.
Yeah, and where did that friendship come from?
I spoke at a conference when I was working in Devon and Cornwall, and Glenn spoke at the same conference.
You worked with the EA in Devon and Cornwall. Yeah.
Glenn spoke at the same conference as part of Oxygen House, and someone that worked in one of the teams within the EA saw Glenn speak and went, it was the same, but you and him said the same thing you need to meet. And he went up to Glenn after Glenn spoke and said, oh, our area director and you would get on great, can I arrange a meeting? So I had no idea who I was meeting, went and spoke to this guy, and we just talked for hours, got on with stuff, and fantastic. Kept in touch with Glenn. He had a fascinating career, and I was, whenever I met anyone early in my career, I was like, what can I learn from this person? How can I grab as many ideas or concepts as possible? You talked about in your journey, doing the miles around the country, collecting and building that network. And just stayed in touch with Glenn, and we'd ask him, he'd always say, I don't do advice, but God, he gave me the best advice. So stayed in touch, and Oxygen House as a group had, for a long time, had invested a lot of money in Wildlife Trust, Rivers Trust, the Woodland Trust, trying to deliver positive impact. The whole group is about solving climate change and making the world more sustainable.
Yeah, and education, right?
Yeah, and education, absolutely. Spark's doing amazing things. And renewable energy as well with low carbon. And the challenge they were having is they wanted a bigger impact. They were like, we're not feeling that we're having enough change. And you got to bear in mind, I'm feeling that same thing at the moment, at that same time about we're not having enough impact. The world's getting worse around us. What can we do? So Glenn and I are talking. So what could we really do to scale conservation to change the way we're doing things? And I'm like, let me think on that. So dove in some books, and over the Christmas period, 20 into 21, it hit me. We can commercialise conservation. You can make a fund out of this and actually make it work for us. So I came back, scribbled some ideas down that turned into a mass proposal paper. Shared that with guys like, we've got to do this. So met the rest of the board, met Mark and Lil Dixon, the sort of principal investors at Oxygen House, and that we've got to give this a go and got to do this. And so we set off a little over 2 years ago. Oh, that just caught one in the eye. Right. Don't do this at home, people.
Yeah, no, we don't do this.
We're good. We all right? Yeah.
That is the hazards of doing a podcast.
Dave, I'm so sorry. Dave's going to freak out. Yeah. No, I'm good. Yeah.
He was watching. Yeah. Just smouldering away.
That is what the audience often say about me.
It's smouldering away. Yeah, absolutely. That's the expression. Thank you. No, that's really good. That's really, it's I think that actually what we're about to go into in terms of what oxygen conservation is doing, now, and have gone from effectively your, the kind of, it's your brainchild. It's come from you, and it's come
with Oxygen House, definitely.
It has, yeah, absolutely. But it's the experiences you've had, and it's the, the kind of the career that you've had that's guided you to this place where you're able to have this conversation with Glenn. You're able to go into that. All those things happen because of you. So to now talk about oxygen conservation and where you're going and what you've done already, is obviously testament to that. But it's important to understand it has to come from somewhere, and it came from you. So. Oxygen conservation, there's a couple of different things we want to talk about. The first one is, and I'm really interested in this, is what are you looking for? When you ultimately have to acquire places. You have to find places to become part of the portfolio to then do things in. What makes, is there a recipe for the right place, or is it a real kind of mixed bag? Like how does that work?
So it's probably worth mentioning. So right now, as we sit here, we've bought 10 sites in 8 counties, 3 countries, 28,000 acres. And thanks to Oxygen House Spot, we've managed to deploy £85 million to conservation in 2 years.
It's incredibly impressive.
And we've been really lucky along the way and had a huge amount of help. You and I talked about this earlier, right? I think you get to a point in your career and your life where you're willing to say, we've had a lot of luck.
Yeah.
And people very kindly go, no, it's not luck, you've worked. Yes, we've worked really hard.
There is still,
but it increases your surface area for luck. That's what hard work gives you, opportunity for
absolutely
to stick.
Yeah.
So each one of those sites was intentionally different. We wanted a special environment, different geography, climate, topography, landscape, community. We wanted to show that whatever landscape you had, you could deliver positive environmental and social impact and generate a profit as a result of what you did, not the purpose.
Yeah.
And that was the big distinction for us, a result of what we did, not the purpose. So that's what we looked on for those first 10. So moving forward now, we're looking for that point of differentiation still in our sort of Fund 1. So we're looking at a fantastic site at the moment in a part of a county that we haven't got, a type of landscape we haven't got, a geography we haven't got. And the distinction, people think about this space as like looking for ways of growing natural capital, looking for carbon credits and things. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for environments we can protect and improve. And as a result of that, it will produce products and services.
Yeah.
So that's definitely Fund 1. What's really exciting is we're thinking about the next stages and external investment we've been offered, and those models very much target landscape. So I think our next series of acquisitions are going to be very large Scottish estates that screen wonderfully for new woodland creation and potential wind farms, and marrying how renewable energy and conservation can work hand in hand.
Where's the first estate that you acquired?
Leon. Atlantic rainforest, Dartmoor.
Yeah, which, as you know, is where we grew up.
You've been badgering me for ages to get to Lane and get to.
Yeah,
we're going to make it happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Lane, for the people that are watching, is where me and Alex pretty much grew up down the road. We spent a lot of our childhood climbing our hound tour, and and kind of getting lost in the woods. And so the idea that was the first place you got. What was? Take me back to the moment that you closed that deal, that you then walked into the rainforest. It's a rainforest.
So I just looked off camera to Dan. So we'd never bought an estate before.
Yeah, absolutely.
On this journey, right?
Yeah.
So we went to look at one site on the way down, which was Northmoor in Somerset.
Okay.
The Wildlife Trust buy it in the end.
So is that wetlands?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But the only reason it was still dry is because the A were pumping the water off it.
Right, okay.
And we couldn't square the circle with, well, hold on a minute. The amount of carbon required to keep this, that can't be associated authentically with what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we went to look on that site day one. Day two, we went to see two sites on Dartmoor. One was Yarner House, which Dan we didn't buy.
Yeah.
Because it's a wedding venue.
Beautiful place.
But it was the house over the land. There wasn't enough land, right? So it was a venue. The other one was Leon. And so we went to look at the house, and the house is nice, and it's a farmhouse.
Pretty house?
Yeah, it's really nice, big estate. And the agent went, you don't want to look at the land as well, do you? And we were like, yeah, we do. And I'd had a meeting as well in one of the offices that day, like kick-off meeting. So I was in a three-piece suit. Dan was appropriately dressed for out in the environment. So we're out there, and we're clambering through the rainforest in a three-piece suit. I looked like I'd lost at a wedding. And the agent kind of looked at me. And she was a young agent who was clearly like a fell runner, because she had fell running shoes on, and I'm like, this is going to go badly. So I went to look at that, and I'm like, oh my God, we found Narnia.
It literally
This is unbelievable. It just kept going and going and going. And then we just fell in love with it and decided we had to do it. And that was a really difficult transaction because very, very private family who'd never sold anything. We were dealing with the daughter who'd moved back to the estate to look after mum when she was unwell.
Yeah.
And she'd passed away, and this place was kept as an absolute sanctuary to mum. They wouldn't let us look at the house. They wouldn't let us survey it. We had to be so delicate, and it took over 6 months to get that deal done. And that's testament to how we want to work. So
yeah, these things aren't done quickly, right?
No,
in any way.
No
any
one,
part of the process of
buying and selling land's horrible. No one enjoys doing it.
Yeah.
And what we were going to try and be the nicest and easiest people to work with, and I'm proud to say that's what we've done. And that exact transaction, it took longer. But we bought their property off them 6 months later because they rang us out of the blue and said, look, we want to move near to their grandkids because the whole family had passed on the estate now. And they said, we couldn't bear the prospect of selling to anyone but you. Can you come and sell? And I took that as such a compliment because it showed we were doing things the right way in terms of how we were working with people.
That, you talked about how long it ultimately takes to buy them.
We did buy one in 4 weeks.
Okay,
but
fine.
Massive one in Scotland. But this one was Spain.
But like buying and selling land, fine, that takes a long time. Getting to know the land is then the next bit, right? Yeah. That takes a long time. And one of the things that I'm intrigued by, me and Alex are, and definitely the people watching will be, and I expect this is a case of many of the people that want to understand more about OC, is how do you marry short-term return? There's a business.
Yeah.
We live in a world where you have to return in the short term with ultimately what you're trying to achieve over the long term. And I think if you can put it in as layman terms as possible, because I think that for me, I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Because there has to be some level of short-term return, but also what you're ultimately doing. You don't. Perfect. Good.
That's not what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So our amazing investors. So our board is myself and 4 others, and we set off with a commitment that this is about that positive impact.
Yeah.
And conservation takes time. Now,
so it's literally flipping the way that we run a business on its head.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about that impact first, knowing the profit will come.
Yeah.
Now, it's transpired that the profit looks like it'll come earlier, and the development of carbon markets and the potential and the interest people have in doing this has just blown us away. The timing has been absolutely perfect, which is a testament to the fact that the planet's fucked and we need to do it now.
Yeah.
And that I really struggle with the weight of that as well. But the worse the planet gets, the better that is for us as a business. And I hate it.
I get that.
But at least we're trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
So I was once asked at a conference, should we accept lower return to support natural capital? You should want lower returns because we've all been too bloody greedy for too long. We need to take less from this planet and give back. And half the room disagreed with that. The other half clapped. So
yeah, that sounds about right. So obviously, in terms of a natural capital perspective, you're acquiring this land, and this isn't about giving. This isn't about trying to sell it on quickly. This is about, as I was speaking to Dan about earlier, learning about these estates, each one individually over a period of 6, 12, 18 months more.
Yeah.
To understand how.
That's still too fast.
And that's still too fast.
It really is. You want a decade to look at this stuff. Because environments, we can't put our own time frame on an environment.
No.
The seasons pass as they want to. The climate changes as it wants to.
And you might learn something new about a site 2 years, 3 years after you even.
3 months after buying them, we find additional property.
Yeah.
So each of our big estates, we found another building that the agent didn't know was there.
Yeah.
Because we've been there more times than they have.
Yeah.
And it's that patience, it's that listening to local people, the people who immediately neighbour the estate. That's what local means to me. Who immediately neighbours it, can see it, can interact with it, lives with that site. What do they know that we can learn from? Because we're not local in all these places, but we don't try and be. We try to be open and receptive and listen to as much as we can and make those decisions as late as possible. I kind of I borrowed that from the agile approach of software development, the latest decision possible.
Yeah.
So that you're not wasting things. Listen, learn. Do we have to decide now? Yes, we do. That's the best we know. But do it in a way of knowing we're going to have a different answer tomorrow and we're going to be proven wrong, and just wear that and learn it and go, hell, what a brilliant thing to learn.
Yeah.
Everyone who kind of tries to put and we don't try and put our mark on an environment, we try and listen to the environment and know what it wants to do.
And the people who obviously live in the communities around it. And as we've talked about a little bit, that is both a blessing to learn from them, but also a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge is what you're doing is novel. It's not arguably not been done anywhere near the scale you've done it before.
No.
So therefore you're facing some significant barriers and challenges, right?
One of the
talk to me about what they are and how that they're overcome, I suppose. Not all of them.
Yeah.
The ones that you faced on a kind of day-to-day basis.
The biggest. They're all different in different places. So some of the challenges that sort of closest to my mind now, and this doesn't mean they're the biggest, but it means they're the ones we're thinking about and dealing with at the moment.
Yeah.
So everyone recognises the environment's fucked, but not here. Here's great.
Yeah.
It's always somewhere else is the problem.
Yeah.
Someone else.
Always some land problem.
Yeah. And everyone's a conservationist. Oh, I'm really into the environment. Oh, that's interesting. What do you do? Oh, I shoot this, or I burn that, or I do this. You mean your version of the environment?
Yeah.
Whereas, and someone could say, well, you're interested in yours, Rich. No, we're interested in listening to what the environment is, and we don't have a doctrine of the OC approach. There isn't a playbook that we go and go, right, we're doing that.
Yeah.
It is listen, learn, let the land lead us in terms of where we are.
Yeah.
So often telling those hard truths to listening to local communities and them say, well, I don't want this here. We've always wanted sheep on the hill. I know that, I appreciate that and respect it, but that's why the environment looks like what it does. I think Yorkshire's the most stark one with that. Everyone goes to Josh, our amazing photographer and videographer, is behind the camera right now. When we first took him to Yorkshire, has that sort of view of green and pleasant land and isn't it lovely here? We had to break his heart and go, no, count the trees.
Yeah.
Well, there aren't any.
Yeah.
Because farmers, sheep and deer have got rid of them. There are stone walls and grass lawns, and that's it. And once you see that, we went back like 3 months later and Josh had taught all his mates about it there. Went back 6 months later, and as we're driving in, Josh is like, it's bloody awful here, I hate this, where are the trees? And once you open people's eyes and they're willing to see it, it's awesome that he's the most coachable guy in the world who wants to see it.
Yeah.
But once you see it, you can't take it away.
But that's it, though. I think it is okay. So this is then getting us into the questions around and the conversation around how does CampWild fit into something like auction conservation, because you guys are changing the world. You've got a much bigger fish to fry. Huge projects. Kind of deploying huge amounts of money on acquiring land and then learning about that land and having to put in place long-term measurable change in those places. So how does CampWild fit? And before you answer that question, what I'll say from my perspective is that, you've just talked about learning from the environment. You guys are learning from the environment. OCR, you're going into these places, you're letting the land lead you. Love that. And you're in it to experience and learn. Now, from my perspective, that's what CampWild is all about too. But I'd like to understand from you, with everything else you've got going on, how do you see this project fitting?
You literally, that's my answer, right? It's the synergy, and it's, so Elle, our head of storytelling that's just over there, smiling away, talks about how if you want people to engage with, to understand, to love and learn to protect the environment, they've got to feel it, live in it, engage with it, understand it and be part of it. And that's what we're trying to do. And it's such a difficult balance. So I don't often defend civil servants, but chief execs of national parks have the hardest job in the world.
Yeah.
2 objectives. Don't let anything change in a national park and bring in more tourists.
Yeah.
You can't do those two things.
Yeah.
It's a seesaw. It's exactly a seesaw. We're kind of trying to do that. So we want more people engaged with enjoying living, working and playing in the rural environment. But not all of it, because you look at somewhere like Leon, incredibly precious rainforest. We rarely go there because our footprints do damage.
Yeah.
You know, we're treading on things that just aren't touched. You know, you've got some trees in there that are 400 or 500 years old, and the mere presence of us being there is damaging. So you have to try and balance that, and that's what I love about your approach to sustainably doing this. It's accessing the right areas of the land in harmony and collaboration with nature, and that's what we've really got to do.
There's a really good example. Like, you know, we've been talking about trying to get people into that space, not necessarily into the rainforest, but what the space we've been talking about is on the edge of it.
It's so close,
and it's this beautiful space which is in this lovely meadow, which looks into it. Doesn't go in, but looks in. So you kind of have this like window into this incredible, effectively into Narnia.
It's literally unbelievable. It changes people.
You know, it does change people, and I think that, you know, that really all of the spaces that we've been lucky, we've had the privilege of being able to go on, and it's now started raining.
That's good. I hope that sounds amazing.
Which is a lovely sound, by the way, with a crackling fire.
I love it.
And the rain. But yeah, like, so hopefully now moving forward, and we've had the privilege, like you say, of going into these spaces, being able to see them, and people have already started going into them. And we have been ringing. We've literally, the people that have been going into this space have been ringing up and saying, how was it? And they're just like effusively talking positively out on the phone saying, can't get enough of it. It was incredible.
Yes.
It's not like camping. That is the one thing that we've, you know, it's not like going to a campsite. It's completely different because you are literally in some places, you know, buried deep in tall grass meadow and getting these incredible experiences from, you know, from the environment around you. And I think that hopefully will be the legacy that we leave from this, which is that these little mini classrooms that we put in all of this
experiential learning, that's the stuff that sticks.
Exactly.
It was so important to us that we weren't a landowner that locked land away.
Yeah.
We wanted to open land up,
but in the right way.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully that by doing this, by creating these mini classrooms, by giving people short, privileged spaces, that because it is a privilege to be in these spaces, to be able to go into these spaces.
It's a privilege to own them. It totally is. You know, no one ever really owns land. You just look after it.
You're a custodian, right?
Yeah.
You're the custodians of the wild, which you know, we is one of our key 5 values, is being a custodian of the wild. But listen, I think we're almost about to die on the camera, and I'm nervous that one of us is going to get pinged by one of those logs burning. So
maybe we're going to do this tons more.
Yeah, we will, and this is great. And look, this is the start of the journey. This is the start of your journey. This is definitely the start of our journey, and we're excited to see where it goes. And that's where to go. But thank you. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Take care.